I call on the Right Honourable Deputy Prime Minister Winston Peters.
Mr. Speaker, today our country has just changed gears from reverse and backwards to forwards and progress. We wish in New Zealand First to begin by recognising the work of the Minister of Finance and her 3 associate ministers, because preparing a budget in an economic crisis is an extraordinarily difficult undertaking which most people don't understand in this House, let alone in the country. A difficult undertaking when, on forecast growth charts, the IMF last year had us, of the 159 countries they measured in terms of GDP growth, they had us 158. Now, that should have been a screaming disaster out there in the mainstream media, but no, they seem to be totally oblivious to these facts. And that's, by comparison, of course, the lowest this country has ever been since there have been measurements. These ministers faced a tsunami of debt, and so does the government as a consequence. An economy at serious risk, confronting international protectionism with the tax take seriously down. Having to confront major structural failure, and New Zealanders voting with their feet, leaving our shores in a mass Old Testament exodus of people. That's what we faced, and the responsibility for that lies on that side of the House. Now, look, turning to one's own portfolio, to vote for foreign affairs, we can only advance the coalition government's ambition to improve the security and prosperity of New Zealanders through an active, well-resourced foreign policy. To that end, Budget 24 invests nearly $60 million in capital and operational funding for essential diplomatic infrastructure to support key international relationships, most particularly in our Pacific neighbourhood. It is a start, a first step, Ministers of Finance. While over the next several months, MFAT will be benchmarking its diplomatic reach against countries we compare ourselves with in size and ambition, as New Zealand more effectively advances their economic and security interests internationally. And we will never get the outcomes in trade that we want unless we put a whole lot of firepower into the field, and I'm certain that that's what we're going to do. Now, having said that, I observed the response from the leader of the Labour Party, Chris Hipkins, and if anybody's in at night not being able to get to bed, replay that speech, because it was going to put Mogadon totally out of business. And after 5 minutes, he ran out of puff. It was noticeable. You know, you have to really look at that and say to yourself, I am psychologically studying what's going on over there, what's happening over there, and their heads were down. Suddenly they were dealing with a tsunami of correspondence that turned up this afternoon just before the budget turned up. All of them looking downwards, not exuding confidence at all, dejected, forlorn, guilty, inwardly repentant, but outwardly mildly defiant. It doesn't look like a party's going to be back in 3 years, does it? Or for that matter, 6 years. Because I tell you why, it hasn't got a leader. No, we haven't. Oh, and by the way, that member shouted out through the whole time, and I thought to myself, gee, there's not many people can eat a banana sideways, but you could. Unbelievable. In 4.5 minutes, he ran out of puff. He wrote his no confidence motion, not when he saw the budget today, but he obviously wrote it yesterday, because he got up and gave a stereotype speech and went straight downhill. He lamented further borrowing that Labor caused. There were crocodile tears for the elderly, having done nothing to advance the super gold card in the time they had it. And, you know, he talked about, as a former Minister of Education, he said, I can tell you. Now, I thought, what a brilliant opening line. As a former Minister of Education, I can tell you, what we could tell us about was how the education standards deteriorated so rapidly under that sort of thinking. And then he referenced the cost of climate change, when on building climate change resilience, they had done so little. And then, this extraordinary thing here, and I hope the mainstream media pick this up if they're still alive, but he mentioned the failed trickle-down theory of economics. Now, that was fascinating, because he was 70 mindless, and he mentioned 40 years ago about this trickle-down theory of economics and the 40-year period, but he forgot to say it was Labor who brought it in after March 1984. Haven't these people got a memory or a conscience? And then within 7 minutes ago, he took all 30 minutes to say something else, but when 7 minutes ago, he told New Zealanders that he was listening to them.
Yes, you can see them.
You know, it's reminiscent of the American rapper Shaggy's song, "It wasn't me, it wasn't me, it wasn't me." Just to be modern, right? It wasn't me, it wasn't me.
It's not a country music reference.
Shaggy response.
No, it's not a country reference.
Country music?
But it's not a country music. It's a rapper. You know, I mean...
You're hip with the kids.
Pardon? No, I mentioned the background of the budget in my first sentence. I mentioned the foreign affairs part of that budget in my second page. Now, with respect, if you want to learn something, you've got to listen. Look, we are sick and tired of failed university student union politicians. They couldn't run the university school tuck shop. They get up here, they've never ever risked any money at all, and they're spending billions of dollars and say that they can do it. No, they can't. Why, the last person that ran it is heading off, having run the country into massive debt. He's going to a university with massive debt. Oh, and they mentioned tobacco taxes. Tobacco taxes went up in December last year. Pay attention. And ladies and gentlemen, then there became, the next speaker was Marori Davidson, and speak a bit of French, sans Swarbuk. Sans means without. Because usually that party has co-leaders, so they get 10 minutes each, so something's going a little wrong over there. Something's happening over there. Sans Swarbuk, not 10 minutes each this time. No, Marori, beg your pardon? Oh, really? Oh, really? Fantastic. Well, I can see why you're over there. Because we speak English in this country, a language that came from a small village in Germany all those centuries ago. And it's the language of commerce worldwide. Now, back to the Greens. Facing 54 years, my friend, of never, ever having made a cabinet. 54 years of never being in cabinet. How can you belong to a movement? You look like a nice guy. You join a movement and it's 54 years in the wilderness. That's what you're going to be by 2026. And then 2029 it'll be 57 years. No, you're not worried about it, no. But some of us came here to do a job. Not to say, look, I think I'll change my professional lamb down to Parliament and maybe they've got a job for me there. No. Some of us here are on a mission. We're out to save our country. We're out to make it one of the greatest countries in the world again, which we once were. Yes. But then, here's the point. From the Greens, you heard the modern version of Das Kapital. This utopian world. When she said this, straight out of the book itself, to each according to their need. That's communism. Why don't you say so? Sunshine. Why don't you tell the people that's what you stand for these days? Don't pose as Maori. Don't pose as being green. Don't pose as being anti-climate change. No, tell me what your economics is. And it's communist. Because when you can get up to this house and own that up, then nobody can protest for me saying it because that's straight from the book itself. Or do a bit of reading before you come here next time.
Education.
Then he entered the race to the bottom with the Te Pāti Māori. All complaints, she did. No answers, no solutions, descended straight from the absurd to the ridiculous. These Green MPs, of course, are the highest aviation taxpayer-paid cost takers of all of Parliament. These Green MPs spend more time on aeroplanes than all the rest of us in terms of cost. About 4 times my party's costs. Where are they flying to? What are they doing? Because they never have a meeting. They never have a public meeting. No, they just have to go to the nearest bush and find a frog and say, this is going to be under grave endangerment, and the media rush off and put them on there. Night after night. They never, ever do anything out there. They have no constituency officers. I see the Pope, what's her name now? No, come on, from up north. Willow Jean Prime wishes to defend them. Because I know why Willow would say that, because that's what Willow doesn't do either. When was the time Willow ever hit the ground hard and went around the place and put in some, spade work for her party? I'm sorry you feel that way, because no matter what happens in the end, if you're going to be on the side of the Greens in this contest, then the Labour Party's finished. Yeah. Absolutely finished.
History.
Highest aviation costs of all MPs. You know something? Winston Churchill said this. Winston Churchill said there's nothing government can give you that it hasn't taken from you in the first place. There's nothing, I'm sure this will go down big with the ACT Party, no, there's nothing government can give you that it hasn't taken from you in the first place. And he also said, I contend that for a nation to try to tax itself into prosperity is like a man standing in a bucket and trying to lift himself up by the handle. And that's all you heard from them over the day. Unbelievable. 2/3 of our new spending goes to health, education and law and order. That's our decisive reply to the fear-mongering and scaremongering led by that crowd over there. 2/3 of our new spending goes to health, education and law and order. And to the front line, not the bloated bureaucratic back line. Or the 17,000 new ones they got when they were there with no productivity issues to argue for in their favour at all. Tax relief in budget 224 leaves $3.7 billion in taxpayers' pocket. Minister, it's not tax savings here. We're just not taking the money out of their pocket they own in the first place. Right? We're leaving the money with them. It's theirs and theirs to keep. You know something? Core ground debt, what we New Zealanders owe, had gone under Labor and the Greens from 20% of GDP to 43% of GDP. I'm repeating what the Minister of Finance has said because this is the staggering environment we're in. Trying to get by with the degraded economic circumstances, bored of economic naivety in the extreme and massive PR boastfulness paid for by the taxpayers of this country on the way through. Budget 2024 invests $1.2 billion over 3 years in the once Provincial Growth Fund, but now Regional Infrastructure Fund. All the name was changed by the Labour Party because they didn't want to own up to the only thing they ever had success around them was the Provincial Growth Fund. Right? Now, regional projects for economic growth, flood protection, climate mitigation, which they never did, but which we will do, and resilience projects are what are our priorities. You know, we all have our view on the previous government's economic performance. Many of these views, rightly so, are in this House not neutral. But there is a view held recently by hundreds of thousands of New Zealanders, and their view is neutral. Because recently, hundreds of thousands over the last 3 years have left or fled this country under a Labor government. That's the most blistering commentary of how bad they were. Oh, tell us about the budget, he said. That's the part that we're redressing right now, right? Now, today the Marori Party organised a protest in Parliament forecourt and then didn't even turn up in this House to find out what was in the budget. No, they didn't turn up to find out what was in this budget. And unprecedented, and if you're the defender, they're stuffed. If you're their protector, you're the advocate, you're the defender, they haven't got a hope in Hades. The highest cost of all MPs in terms of taxpayer paid costs for MPs, but they couldn't even bother to turn up. Couldn't he bother to turn up to the... Never been seen in this parliament since 1854. Since 1854, never been seen. And you are not the youngest member of parliament. You never were. Dobby Pike here was. Let me inform you, Maori people, that Dobby Pike here was here when he's 19 years of age. So stop showing off. Stop showing off and wearing a hooey feather. Absolute dereliction of duty. Can I say... yeah, well, I'm pleased you're here because you make me look young. Take your hat off. Take your cowboy hat off. You make me look young. Now, this is a quote. This is a quote from someone back when that is quite poignant and reflective. This person said this: "It is Kiwi-centred because significant decisions have been made and implemented that we are driving right now as a baseline to a nationhood's concept that gives them, regardless of race and creed, a sense of belonging as Kiwis in this great country. Our challenge is in moving forward." Yes. That is a quote from John Tamahere, president of the Maori Party in 2005. And here's another quote from someone back when that is insightful and honest. Quotes, "The rise of the Maori Party is unfortunate and frustrating. It is not Maori. Maori is a generic term. The group of people who have supported the rise of the Maori Party are actually tribal fundamentalists," unquotes. That is a quote from John Tamahere, current president of the Maori Party. And another quote from someone back when that is based in fact and quite applicable to what is happening outside there today, on Budget Day. Quotes, "The problem with the Party Maori is that it is led by a bunch of people who have done extraordinarily well out of protest activism, so they can tell their children why they should vote against things, why they should march against things, and why they should dislike others," end of quotes. That's a quote from John Tamahere, current president of the Party Maori in 2005, and screaming out like you don't do back on the marae in the Taranaki won't help you now, nor that hat. And another very factual and reflective quote as well back then: "It is quite clear the Maori Party is built around New Age educationalists, reconstructionists in terms of history, and the academics and the new elite around the Treaty of Waitangi checkbooks. There is no case and no space in this country for separatists. I am very proud of my Ngāti Porotanga, very proud of that tribal background. We do not ram it down other people's throats, but we are very proud of it." Oh yes, here we go. Yes, we are going with the same quote. Or, quote, reading on, "or being proud of it does not mean to say that we can coerce others into our way of thinking." I'll say it again. I'll say it again for the lady from up north. Our being proud of it does not mean to say that we can coerce others into our way of thinking. We have to acknowledge that this is a great land of diversity, difference, and opportunity, end of quotes. Who's it from? Take a wild guess. From John Tamahere, current president of the Party Maori in 2005. But the last quote is the most insightful of all. Here we go. Now, look, you've only been here 5 seconds, and where I come from, where you come from, you listen to your elders, okay? So just hush up, show some manners, show that you might understand where you might go in the future before they turf you out in 5 seconds' time. Here we go again. It's the last insightful quote. Quotes, "The days when people could stand up and scream treaty and believe that they would get special rights have gone." John Tamahere, current president of the Party Maori. Ladies and gentlemen, we suffered an indignity today because the mass majority of Maori went to jobs, sometimes 2 or 3 jobs today. They went to work for their family and their children, alongside all other New Zealanders, all keeping our current economic economy going, our hospitals, our education system, everything. They went to work today. but a few people decide to go outside this parliament and not go to work.
Blind mice, blind mice.
What I've just quoted to you today, in both respects to the President of the Maori Party, what he said then and what they're doing now, is an example of hypocrisy that's palpable, profound, precise, predictable, preferential, punitive and pathetic.